In this section, we will create a road network to test our gameplay. Initially, we will design a simple, handcrafted scene. Later, we will introduce procedural road generation to create a dynamic terrain system. For now, we want to keep things straightforward. To get started, download the endless_runner_assets package. This package contains various assets sourced from the Unity Asset Store. For the sake of simplicity, I have combined all these assets into a single package for this tutorial. You can find references to all the original assets in the video description. Once downloaded, drag and drop the package or import the package into the Unity project. You should see that the assets contain audio, city prop bundle, gold coins, and some decoration props that comprise our roads. Navigate to the prefabs folder, where you'll find a prefab named road_intersection_x. Hide the plain game object in the scene hierarchy, as it will no longer be needed since we're about to create roads. Next, right-click in the hierarchy and create a new empty game object. Name it Road Network and reset its transform to ensure it is properly aligned in the scene. Drag and drop the road_intersection_x prefab as a child of the Road Network game object. Then, drag and drop the road prefab into the scene. Each of these prefabs has dimensions of 10 by 10 units. To extend the road, offset each new road prefab by 10 units along the z-axis. To place roads along the x-axis, rotate the road prefab by 90 degrees and offset it by 10 units along the x-axis. Using this method, manually create a simple closed road network by positioning the road_intersection_x and road prefabs. In a later section, we'll automate this process with procedural road generation using these prefabs. For now, this manually crafted network will suffice for testing purposes. We have now created a closed road network that we will use as a testing ground for our Endless Runner game. Click play to test the character running along the newly created roads. Navigate to an intersection and press the right arrow key to make a turn. However, you'll notice an issue with our current setup. If the left arrow or right arrow keys are pressed while the character is on the road, it veers off and leaves the road entirely. This behavior is unintended. The character should only be able to rotate when it is at a road intersection. At any other point along the road, pressing the left arrow or right arrow keys should have no effect, ensuring the character stays on the path. To fix this issue, open the road_intersection_x prefab and add a box collider component. Adjust its size along the x and z axes to 0.8 units. Enable the collider as a trigger by checking the Is Trigger checkbox. Next, add a rigid body component, set it to as kinematic, and enable all constraints by selecting freeze position and freeze rotation. Select the AJ game object and set the tag of this game object to player. Open the player controller script from the scripts folder by double-clicking it to launch it in Visual Studio. In this script, we'll add two public static variables. The first variable, road intersection location, is initialized to vector 3.0 and will store the position of the road intersection. The second variable, is turning zone, is a Boolean set to false by default. which will be used to track whether the character is currently within a turning zone. Next, navigate to the update method and modify the code responsible for applying rotation. Update it to ensure that the character is allowed to rotate only when it is within a turning zone. We do this both for left and right turn. In the Unity editor, create a new script named road intersections and attach it to the road_intersection_x prefab. Then, double-click the script to open it in Visual Studio for editing. We will remove the start and update methods from the script, as they will not be necessary for this functionality. Instead, we will implement two methods, onTriggerEnter and onTriggerExit. These methods will handle the interactions between the road intersection and the player. In the onTriggerEnter method, we will check if the object entering the trigger collider has the tag player. If it does, we will set the playerController.road intersection location to the position of the intersection and update the playerController.isTurningZone variable to true. This will indicate that the player has entered a turning zone. Additionally, we will log a debug message to confirm the event during development. Similarly, in the onTriggerExit method, we will check if the object exiting the trigger collider is the player. If it is, we will set playerController.isTurningZone to false, signaling that the player has left the turning zone. Here, too, we will log a debug message. These methods will allow us to track when the player is in or out of a turning zone, ensuring that rotation will only be permitted at road intersections. In the Unity editor, select the AJ character and add a box collider component. Adjust its size along the y-axis to 1.8 units. Click Play to test the setup. You'll notice that the character can now only turn left or right when within the intersection zones, while pressing the left or right arrow keys along the road no longer has any effect. This concludes Section 4, Generating Roads and a Basic Scene. In the next section, we will focus on implementing lane-changing functionality.